Hello, I'm here today to tell you a little bit about Charleston, South Carolina. If you like history, Charleston, South Carolina is a place that has abundance of it. Charleston is a city that dates back to 1670, known then as Charlestown, named after King Charles II of England. There's a lot of historic places. I'm going to tell you just about a few of them. I'm going to start out by telling you a little bit about Fort Sumter. Fort Sumter was constructed in 1829 after they found the importance of it due to the War of 1812. The fort itself is built out of palmetto logs, which they didn't know at the time, but later found out the soft wood of the palmetto log would actually absorb cannonballs that were fired at it. That is one of the reasons that the palmetto tree is the state tree of South Carolina and also appears on the state flag, like you can see in my shirt here, where you have the palmetto tree, and this is a representation of the state flag. Fort Sumter was also the site of the first shots of the Civil War. If you would like to visit Fort Sumter, you can take a short ferry ride out to the fort and really get an idea of the history and the construction of the fort itself. That's a little bit about Fort Sumter. I'll tell you a little bit about the historic architecture of Charleston itself. Charleston has over 12,000 buildings that are placed on the National Registration of Historic Places. One of the reasons this is due to the fact that buildings can only be taken down if it's by a natural disaster, such as a hurricane, tornado, something along those lines. And also, if you want to remodel a building, it has to be remodeled back to its natural state, the way it was built in the beginning. You also have over 16 churches that date from 1761 to 1891. Many of them still have that beautiful Victorian architecture. We all know that one of the reasons a lot of people came to the States back in those days was for freedom, religious freedom. So as people came over, they started building churches so they could practice their religion freely. Due to the amount of churches in Charleston, it has actually been referred to as the Holy City. One other beautiful architecture of Charleston is they still have a lot of the cobblestone roads that date back to the 1700s, 1800s. And a little fun fact about the cobblestone roads is doctors would actually prescribe women when they were pregnant to get into a horse and buggy and go down the cobblestone roads in hopes, I guess, to jar the baby loose. That's just one of the stories I've been told when I was down in Charleston by some of the historians. So that's a little bit about the architecture. Let's talk about the Battery, or Battery Park as it could be called also. The park itself still has cannons that were placed there after the War of 1812. It was to protect the city of Charleston where the Ashley and the Cooper River meet. Along the Battery, you also have a lot of those beautiful homes that still overlook the water and the park. This was prime real estate back in the 1800s, so you can imagine the houses are just beautiful. It's actually been told that people would sit on their porches during the Civil War and watch cannonballs be fired from ships at Fort Sumter. So that's a little bit about the Battery. I've talked a little bit about Fort Sumter and the historic architecture of Charleston and the Battery and the history of it. So Charleston has a lot to offer. The history is just one of the many perks.